The strange lights appeared in the night sky over Seoul at exactly midnight. They flickered with colors no human had ever seen before, hanging above the city like frozen fireworks. Most people thought it was a new light show, or perhaps military exercises. Only Jaiwo Park, watching from her small observatory outside the city, knew better. Jaiwo's instruments detected energy readings that made no scientific sense. She checked her equipment twice, then called her colleague Taehyun. "You need to see this," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "The readings are off the charts." Taehyun arrived an hour later, his eyes widening as he looked at the data. "This isn't possible," he whispered. By morning, similar lights appeared over Tokyo, New York, London, and Moscow. The world's governments tried to calm their people, calling it an unusual aurora event. But when all electronics failed for exactly 7 minutes worldwide, panic began to spread. 3 days after the first lights, Jaiwoo was summoned to a secret government facility. She found herself in a room with 5 other scientists and General Do-hyun Kim, head of South Korea's defense forces. "We believe we are facing a non-human intelligence," the general said simply. "And Dr. Park, your research makes you our best hope of understanding it." Jaiwoo swallowed hard. Her work on quantum communication had always been theoretical. Now it might be the key to humanity's survival. The scientists worked day and night, trying to decode strange signals that had begun interrupting all radio and television broadcasts. On the 6th day, they made a breakthrough. "It's a language," Jaiwoo explained to the general. "But it's not just sound or symbols. It contains mathematical concepts and what seem to be emotional markers." That night, they received the first clear message. It appeared simultaneously on every screen across the planet, in all languages. "We are Kthal. We have studied your world for 1,000 of your years. The testing phase is now complete. Preparation for harvest begins." The world's leaders gathered in an emergency United Nations session. Some wanted to show peaceful intentions. Others called for immediate military action. In the end, they could only watch as giant ships, each the size of a small city, appeared in the skies above Earth's major cities. Jaiwoo and her team were moved to an underground facility as the first attacks began. Kthal targeted military bases and power plants with weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Conventional weapons had no effect on the alien ships. "They're feeding on our fear," Jaiwoo realized, watching footage of the attacks. Their energy signatures grow stronger when people panic. 2 weeks into the invasion, something unexpected happened. A small farming village in rural South Korea refused to run when a Kthal scout ship approached. Instead, the villagers stood together in their town square, holding hands. The ship hovered, seemingly confused, then departed without attacking. Similar reports came in from around the world. When humans showed courage instead of fear, the Kthal hesitated. Jaiwoo brought this information to General Kim. "Kthal has a weakness," she explained. "They expected us to break apart in fear, but when we stand together, they don't know how to respond." The general looked thoughtful. "Can we use this?" Before Jaiwoo could answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. A Kthal ship had been detected directly above them. "They found us," the general said grimly. But instead of attacking, the ship sent a focused transmission directly to their communications system. It contained images of human history, wars, destruction, cruelty, followed by a simple message: "You destroy yourselves. We merely hasten the inevitable." Jaiwoo stared at the screen, an idea forming. "They're trying to understand us," she said. "And they've only seen our worst. Show them our best." Working through the night, Jaiwoo and her team gathered images of human compassion, sacrifice, and love. They created a transmission showing people helping each other during disasters, medical breakthroughs, art and music, children playing, and families supporting each other. They sent the message directly to the Kthal ship above them. For 3 long minutes, there was no response. Then, a new message appeared. Contradiction detected. Further study required. The ship withdrew, joining the main Kthal fleet now gathering in Earth's orbit. Jaiwoo looked at the general. "We've confused them," she said. "Now we need to use that confusion." Thal has never encountered a species like humans before, capable of both terrible destruction and remarkable compassion. So what's our next move? Asked the general. Jaiwo looked at the satellite images of the massive Thal mothership now visible even from Earth's surface. We need to reach their main consciousness, she said. And show them exactly who they're dealing with. The sky darkened as Thal's massive ships moved into position over major cities worldwide. In Seoul, people watched with a mixture of fear and awe as the largest vessel, a structure that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, positioned itself directly over the city center. Hyunwoo Lee stood on the roof of his apartment building, filming the ship with his phone. At 28, he had been an engineering student before the invasion. Now he was just trying to stay alive. You should come inside, his neighbor Minji called from the stairwell. The government has ordered everyone to shelter. Hyunwoo shook his head. I want to see what happens. What happened next would burn itself into the memories of everyone who witnessed it. A pulse of energy, not light, not electricity, but something else entirely, shot from the bottom of the ship. When it hit Seoul's main power station, the entire city went dark. Seconds later, similar pulses hit communications towers, water treatment facilities, and government buildings. The attack was precise and methodical. Thal wasn't destroying the city, it was paralyzing it. 3 days later, Hyunwoo joined a group of survivors gathering in an underground shopping center. Food was running low, and without power, people were growing desperate. The aliens want us to turn on each other, said Minji, who had emerged as one of the group's leaders. Once a captain in South Korea's military, she now organized the survivors into teams. That's why they hit infrastructure instead of just bombing us. They're watching to see how we break. Then let's not break, Hyunwoo suggested. Working with other engineers and technicians, Hyunwoo began setting up an independent power system using car batteries and modified solar panels. Other groups organized food distribution, medical care, and even a makeshift school for children. When Kthal sent smaller scout ships to investigate the shopping center, they found not chaos and fighting, but organization and cooperation. The scouts hovered, observing, then withdrew without attacking. This pattern repeated across the world. Where people panicked and fought each other, Thal attacked with devastating force. But where communities banded together, the aliens seemed confused, even hesitant. 2 weeks into the invasion, Hyunwoo made an important discovery. He had been analyzing debris from a damaged scout ship when he noticed something about the energy weapons. They're not actually destroying matter, he explained to Minji and the others. They're disrupting energy patterns. That's why they took out our electrical grid first, they weaponize existing energy sources against us. How does that help us? Someone asked. It means we might be able to redirect their attacks, Hyunwoo said. With the right equipment. Using satellite dishes, modified cell phones, and parts salvaged from electronics stores, Hyunwoo and a small team built what he called energy mirrors. They positioned these devices around the shopping center perimeter. They didn't have to wait long to test them. The next day, 3 scout ships approached, firing energy pulses at the entrance. The mirrors activated, catching the energy and channeling it back toward one of the ships. The scout ship faltered, its systems disrupted by its own weapon. As it spun out of control, it crashed into an empty office building 2 blocks away. The other scouts retreated immediately. News of the successful counterattack spread through makeshift radio networks that survivors had established. Soon, communities across Seoul were building their own energy mirrors. Similar developments occurred in other cities worldwide as people shared information through any means available. Kthal responded by changing tactics. Instead of direct attacks, the aliens began creating strange phenomena. Hallucinations that appeared real, voices that seemed to come from nowhere, and dreams so vivid that people woke screaming. They're trying to break our minds since they couldn't break our bodies, Minji observed. But again, humans adapted. People learned to distinguish between reality and Kthal's illusions. They supported each other through nightmares and hallucinations. Children seemed particularly resistant, often seeing through the deceptions first. 1 month into the occupation, something unprecedented happened. The massive Kthal mothership over Seoul moved, repositioning itself higher in the atmosphere. The same occurred over other major cities. They're pulling back, Minji said, watching through binoculars. But why? The answer came that night. Dr. Jaiwoo Park, now working with an international scientific coalition, broadcast a message over the emergency channel. We've discovered Kthal's weakness. They feed on fear and chaos, but positive human emotions, especially empathy and courage, are toxic to them. They're retreating to regroup, but this isn't over. They're trying to understand us, and that gives us an opportunity. We need everyone to help us build a special communications network. Here's what we need. Hyunwoo looked at the list of requirements and smiled. For the first time since the invasion began, he felt hope. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was fighting back. The underground laboratory hummed with activity as Dr. Jaiwoo Park carefully examined the captured Kthal technology. After Hyunwoo's team had successfully redirected an energy weapon, they had managed to recover parts of the downed scout ship. These fragments now sat on Jaiwoo's examination table, glowing with a faint blue light even without power. It's almost like it's alive, she murmured, adjusting her instruments. Yoonji, a former biology professor now working with the Resistance, looked up from her microscope. That's because it might be. Look at this. On her screen appeared what looked like cellular structures, but they shifted and moved in patterns that defied biological understanding. The technology isn't just built by Kthal, Yoonji explained. It might be part of Kthal itself. For 3 days, the scientists worked without rest, analyzing the alien fragments. The breakthrough came when Jaiwoo connected the largest piece to a modified EEG machine normally used to read human brainwaves. The screen filled with patterns, complex, shifting, but undeniably similar to neural activity. It's receiving signals, Jaiwoo said, excitement breaking through her exhaustion. From the mothership. Using the connection, they began to intercept communications between the scout remnants and the main Kthal consciousness. At first, the data made no sense, but slowly, patterns emerged. It's not just a communication, Taehyun said as he helped decode the signals. It's memories. Kthal is sharing experiences across its entire being. The scientists created a visual interface to interpret the data stream. Images formed on their screens, planets unlike Earth, civilizations in ruins, and strange beings consumed by what appeared to be living darkness. This is Kthal's history, Jaiwoo realized. It's showing us what it did to other worlds. But as they watched more of the memories, something unexpected emerged. They saw Kthal's own world, a beautiful place of crystal structures and beings of pure energy, being destroyed by another, even more ancient entity. They watched as the surviving Kthal fragments, driven by fear and a desperate need to survive, began consuming other life forms. Kthal wasn't always a destroyer, Yoonji said softly. It became one because it was destroyed first. As they continued monitoring the signal, they discovered something even more crucial. Kthal was confused by humans. In all its conquests across thousands of worlds, it had never encountered a species that behaved like humanity. Look at this part, Jaiwoo pointed to a sequence showing human behaviors that particularly puzzled Kthal, people risking their lives to save strangers, sharing resources even when scarce, and protecting the young and old instead of abandoning them. Kthal expected us to turn on each other, Taehyun said. All other species either had technology advanced enough to fight back directly, or they collapsed into chaos when their systems failed. That's why it retreated, Jaiwoo realized. We're not following the pattern. And now it's studying us. The team brought their findings to the international coalition that had formed to coordinate the resistance. General Do Hyun listened as Jaiwoo explained their discovery. So this thing has emotions? He asked skeptically. Not exactly, Jaiwoo replied. But it has experiences, memories, and something like values. And right now, it's experiencing something new. Doubt. Hyunwoo, who had joined the meeting after helping establish a new resistance cell, leaned forward. So we can use that? Make it doubt more? Jaiwoo nodded. Kthal feeds on fear and conflict. But human emotions like compassion, courage, and hope seem to disrupt its consciousness. If we could project these emotions somehow. Like a weapon, the general said. Like a message, Jaiwoo corrected. We need to show Kthal who we really are, not just our capacity to fight, but our capacity to care. They spent the next week developing a plan. Using the global network of makeshift transmitters that resistance cells had built, they would create what Jiwo called an emotional broadcast. A synchronized projection of human experiences and emotions directed at Cthal's ships. As they prepared, Thal made a new move. Strange crystalline structures began growing in areas with high human population density. People who touched these crystals experienced visions, terrible futures where Earth was consumed, but also glimpses of Cthal's own past. "It's trying to communicate with us," Yunji said after studying reports of the phenomena. "In its own way." The night before they planned to launch their emotional broadcast, Jiwo had a dream. She saw the original Cthal beings, beautiful creatures of light, and felt their terror as their world ended. She woke with tears on her face but also with new determination. Thal was a victim before it was a destroyer, she told the team the next morning. "We need to remember that when we make contact, we're not just fighting an enemy, we're trying to reach something lost and afraid, something that might still remember what it was before fear consumed it." Taehyun looked at the monitors showing Cthal's ships positioned above Earth. "And if we can't reach it?" Jiwo's expression hardened. "Then we use what we've learned to stop it. Either way, we act tomorrow." In the harsh winter of 2024, the battlefield transformed into a chessboard of strategic moves and calculated risks. The Ukrainian forces, weary but unbroken, prepared for a counteroffensive that would become a defining moment in their struggle against Russian invasion. Major Andriy Kovalenko stood at the edge of a snow-covered field, his breath forming small clouds in the freezing air. His eyes scanned the horizon, watching the subtle movements of his troops. They were not just soldiers, but defenders of a homeland, each one carrying the weight of hope for millions. The plan was simple yet daring. Ukrainian military strategists had spent months analyzing Russian defensive positions, identifying weak points that could be exploited. Intelligence suggested the Russians had spread their forces thin, creating opportunities for a precise, targeted strike. Tanks rumbled softly, their engines muffled by the thick snow. Armored vehicles moved like shadows across the white landscape, their camouflage blending perfectly with the winter terrain. Soldiers moved with discipline, their movements calculated and precise. The first wave of the attack began at dawn. Artillery shells whistled through the air, creating a thunderous symphony of destruction. Russian defensive lines were hit with unexpected intensity, their fortifications crumbling under the precise Ukrainian strikes. Drone footage captured the chaos, Russian soldiers scrambling, their defensive positions quickly becoming vulnerable. Infantry units moved swiftly behind the artillery bombardment. They used the chaos and confusion to their advantage, pushing forward with remarkable coordination. Young soldiers who had been training for months now demonstrated their skills, moving through difficult terrain with practiced efficiency. One particular unit, led by Lieutenant Natalia Petrova, managed to break through a critical defensive line. Her team moved quickly, neutralizing strategic points and creating a path for larger forces to advance. Her leadership was calm yet fierce, inspiring her soldiers to push beyond their perceived limitations. The Russians were caught off guard. Their intelligence had underestimated the Ukrainian capacity for a coordinated, multi-pronged attack. Commanders who had grown complacent now found themselves scrambling to respond to a fluid and dynamic battlefield. Communication became key. Ukrainian forces used encrypted channels and advanced communication technologies to maintain perfect synchronization. Each unit knew its role, each soldier understood the broader strategy. This was not just a military operation, but a carefully orchestrated dance of military precision. Civilian volunteers played a crucial role as well. Local populations provided critical intelligence, helping Ukrainian forces understand terrain and enemy movements. They were the eyes and ears on the ground, turning every village and town into a potential source of strategic information. The counteroffensive was not just about territorial gains. It was a psychological battle. Each successful strike sent a powerful message: Ukraine would not be broken. The resilience of its people, their unwavering spirit, became a weapon more powerful than any tank or missile. As days passed, the Ukrainian forces made significant progress. They reclaimed strategic positions, disrupted Russian supply lines, and demonstrated a level of military adaptability that surprised many international observers. It was not just a military victory, but a testament to national determination. Major Kovalenko watched the progress with a mix of pride and caution. He knew that every victory came with a heavy price. Soldiers lost, families torn apart, a landscape scarred by conflict. Yet, the mission continued, driven by a collective hope for sovereignty and peace. The counteroffensive became more than a military strategy. It was a narrative of resistance, of a nation refusing to be defined by aggression. Each soldier carried not just weapons, but the dreams of a free Ukraine. As winter slowly gave way to early spring, the battlefield told a story of human courage. Ukrainian forces had shown the world that determination, strategy, and unity could challenge even the most formidable opponent. The counteroffensive was not just about reclaiming territory, but about preserving a national identity, a cultural spirit that could not be conquered. The story was far from over, but in those moments of strategic triumph, hope burned bright, a flame that no winter could extinguish. In the quiet town of Millbrook, where shadows seemed to linger longer than usual, Sarah Jensen discovered a secret that would change everything. She was an ordinary librarian, with wire-rimmed glasses and a passion for old books, never expecting her life to take such an extraordinary turn. The ancient manuscript she found tucked away in the library's oldest archive was unlike anything she had ever seen before. Its pages were yellowed and fragile, covered in strange symbols that seemed to pulse with an odd energy. When she first touched the document, a strange tingling sensation ran through her fingertips, like electricity mixed with something otherworldly. At first, nothing seemed different. Sarah continued her routine, shelving books, helping students, and enjoying her quiet life. But slowly, imperceptible changes began to occur. Her dreams became vivid and intense, filled with landscapes she had never seen and languages she did not understand. Colors around her seemed more vibrant, and sounds became sharper. One night, while reading the mysterious manuscript under her desk lamp, she noticed something extraordinary. The symbols on the page began to move, reshaping themselves into recognizable patterns. They weren't just random markings, they were a complex language waiting to be understood. As days passed, Sarah realized she was changing. Her perception of reality was shifting. She could suddenly understand things that were previously incomprehensible. Mathematical equations that once confused her now made perfect sense. Languages she had never studied became as clear as her native tongue. Her colleagues started to notice something different about her. The way she moved seemed more graceful, her eyes more alert. She absorbed information at an incredible rate, finishing complex research projects in hours that would typically take weeks. But she kept her transformation a secret, afraid of what might happen if anyone discovered her newfound abilities. The manuscript became her constant companion. She studied it meticulously, decoding its ancient wisdom. Each page revealed more about a hidden world of knowledge that existed just beyond ordinary perception. It spoke of transformations, of human potential far beyond what science currently understood. Strange events began to occur around her. Electronic devices would momentarily flicker when she was near. Plants in her office seemed to grow more vibrantly. Animals would look at her with an unusual recognition, as if they sensed something fundamentally different about her essence. Sarah's transformation wasn't just intellectual, it was deeply spiritual. She began to understand connections between things that most people never noticed. The intricate web of life, the subtle energies that flow through everything, became as clear to her as visible light. Her family and friends noticed subtle changes. She spoke with more confidence, moved with more purpose. Her insights became profound, her understanding of complex topics remarkably deep. Yet she remained humble, knowing that her journey of transformation was just beginning. The manuscript became more than just a document, it was a gateway. A portal to understanding that transcended normal human limitations. Sarah realized she was part of something much larger, a potential evolutionary shift that few would ever comprehend. As winter turned to spring, her transformation continued. She was no longer just Sarah Jensen, the quiet librarian. She had become something more, a bridge between known reality and the mysterious realms of unknown potential. The manuscript had chosen her, guided her, transformed her. Her story was just beginning, and the world around her was about to change in ways no one could predict. The quiet librarian had become a vessel of extraordinary potential, carrying knowledge that could reshape human understanding forever. The symbols in the manuscript continued to dance, waiting, watching, guiding her journey into the unknown.